Caledonian Elixir. From Glasgow, Scotland, welcome to the Caledonian Elixir. I'm your host, Vincent, and we are on YouTube, Twitter X, Facebook, and also on Rumble, and as a podcast on Spotify. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and follow button wherever you find us. It helps the show, and I do appreciate it. So, welcome back. And if you're finding us for the first time, we're a podcast that covers everything from politics to the paranormal, told with wit and true grit. Now, I've been making a lot of content on the wars that have been waging across the world recently. The last few shows have been debate shows on Iran, Israel, the US, Trump, and I thought we would do something more traditional today and go back to our roots. So, we hear a lot about full spectrum dominance in the media today in regards to our military, and that our government is hijacked. Our government agencies and institutions appear to be serving corporate agendas, and at the same time, our planet, our biosphere, is being weaponized, geoengineered for warfare and profit. And if you haven't heard of chemtrails, Morgellons, transhumanism, weather warfare, you're going to want to stay with us and pay attention, because this is a brain-bending episode. And to discuss all of these things is my guest, Elana Freeland. Elana is an author, lecturer, and researcher into geoengineering and electromagnetism and other related subjects. So without further ado, Elana Freeland. Hello, Elana. How are you doing today?
Let me see if I can get situated here. Okay.
Well, hopefully we've got the gremlins out of the system and we can hear each other better today. So it's good to have you on. Now, I recently reread your book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the full spectrum dominance of planet Earth, just to refresh my knowledge on the subject. But before we get into the weeds, can you break down your background for the audience, for myself, and how you became interested in this subject?
Right. Well, that book that you reviewed, I wrote that in 2014. That was the very first book I wrote on geoengineering. And what had happened for me is I was writing a whole series of books about America and what had happened to it since John F. Kennedy's televised assassination happened in 1963. I had had tea with Kennedy in the Rose Garden, along with 99 other boys and girls who were at something in the States called Girls Nation and Boys Nation. Bill Clinton, when he was president, talked a lot about that time at Boys Nation. I never met him, but I too remember that day when Kennedy stood up and was talking with us, and it had a profound effect on me. So that when I got older and realized that the CIA had been involved in his assassination and that many other corporate types had been involved as well, plus the Operation Paperclip Nazis, etc. I really wanted justice, and the justice I wanted was not a court justice. It was because I knew the courts were fixed and criminal, but I wanted justice for myself. And so I began to research into what had happened to America since the end of World War II, actually, 1945, and then on all the way to Kennedy's assassination. And now here we are many years later. And people always think that history is the most boring topic you can possibly study in high school, but it really isn't. It's just that I don't think we get the right history. We don't get the true history. And that's where it becomes very, very interesting when you see all the different causalities, the different groups involved in subverting a nation like the United States, which is very large, landmass wise and population wise. That was the very beginning, and it was about 2005 when I met the scientist Clifford Carnicom at a breakfast in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we started talking about his research into the precipitation he was collecting from the jets flying over northern New Mexico. That there were trails coming out the back of the jet that were not contrails, condensation trails, but were chemical trails. How did he know that? Well, chemicals have a certain signature when they are present in something. So he knew that what he was seeing was really not contrails, but was something else. And he
Right,
was
you're moving on to what was going to be my next question. What is the difference between chemtrails and contrails? Because it's something I've asked myself. So what you're describing is this was something of a catharsis to you, that you became interested in this because you felt you wanted justice for yourself.
Well, it was the next piece of the puzzle that showed itself. I had files on 100 things about America in order to find out what had happened. I didn't really know the causes, but this was the geoengineering file, which was really just chemtrails at that point. I didn't even know the term geoengineering. And this would have been 2005. I had collected some data, and now I had a scientist who was tracking exactly that and collecting precipitation coming down from the jets and analyzing it chemically and under his microscope. So we began to work together, and I certainly I didn't know it would lead to taking over the next 20 years of my life. I'll tell you that. I had no idea.
I'm a bit of an obsession.
Say it again?
Become a little bit of an obsession for you.
Oh yes, because it was not very long before I had put together. I'm pretty smart. My father, unfortunately, was a U.S. Navy intelligence scientist, and he was particularly expert in inorganic chemistry. So I'm sure he was working on some of these very top secret projects that I have come across while I've been researching. But I didn't know I would go into it, but it's very dangerous, this technology, because it's national security, cannot even get the chemistry that is in jet fuel. You cannot even find that out. It goes into closed session. It's all secret. And so it was the chemistry in the sky that had attracted Clifford Carnicom, the scientist's attention. And now it attracted my attention as well. Why would it be, if it was just from the jet fuel, if it was just combustion? And yeah, we all know that there's things in the combustion of cars and everything else that is not so great for us. But in this case, I began to wonder why it was national security and why it went into secret session if you ever brought it up in public. So that was the beginning for me in 2005. And now it's come out in the States. Now, where you are in Scotland, in Western Europe, I know for a fact, I lived in England for a while, 3 years, and I know that in Europe, you all are behind where I am regarding this technology. I can't say how many years behind me you are, but in the understanding of what this technology is doing, I have never talked to a European yet who is on par with what I understand about this technology. And it is lethal. It has many layers. It is not just about weather. It is not just about cloud seeding and weather modification. No, it's there are many things that it's involved in. And if I could,
Okay. So what is the difference for the layman? What is the difference between contrails and chemtrails? What are in the chemtrails that are not in the contrails?
well, I said that already, but I didn't go into detail. Let me go into a little more detail. Okay, a contrail, con stands for condensation. Condensation means ice, water, that's it. You're burning it up in the upper atmosphere, and it will leave a very short trail behind the jet. And the jet is usually small, not the big jets. And it will last for maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And then it just dissipates. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
A chemtrail is a chemical trail. It has chemistry in it. And it will last for a big, long trail. I mean, it can be short, but usually they're long trails that then, as you know, have curlicues on them and little things coming off of the trail. And eventually you will watch, if you watch it long enough, if you have the patience, you will see it too will dissipate, but not disappear. No, it will leave a cloud cover, pale, smoky looking cloud cover. And that's because it's chemical. So that's very different. There's a distribution going on there. It isn't just that it's like you see a car on the freeway where the carburetor is not working and they're leaving like piles of behind it. It's not like that. This is being distributed behind the jet, and it's coming from the engine combustion chamber. But it's more, if you look closely, which most people don't, it's coming from the wings. And then you find out, after much research, that there's not fuel in the wings. It's a lie, they've told us. In fact, passenger jets don't really need that much fuel. They need fuel for landings and takeoffs. And otherwise, they're using turbo engines type of fan where they're using the actual atmosphere and pulling wind in order to make the jet go. So what's coming out of the wings? Well, that's where the chemicals come out. And those are being distributed. Now, at first, admittedly, I thought, oh, that's just flotsam and jetsam. We have a phrase that, from something that's using combustion. No, it's not. It's not just something coming along with the good thing, which is the jet is moving. No, it's actually a chemical distribution system. And the problem is that we're all breathing it, right? There's only one atmosphere in the earth. It's like a big bubble we're in. It's not like every country gets to control their little part of the bubble. No, we have winds, we have all this, create winds that move different parts of the weather system and the chemicals that are coming from these jets. So we're all breathing this chemical stew that's being laid. And we now know.
So, sorry for interrupting. For those listening thinking, and there are those who think this is a conspiracy theory, right? For those who are listening who think this is a conspiracy theory, Prime Minister Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, announced a 50 million in funding for research into solar geoengineering involving measures for mitigating climate change last summer in the UK. And this included seeding our sky or atmosphere with reflective particles to cool the nation. So this has been published, it's very real. And again, it's not just the UK government, but the UK government Advanced Research Invention Agency that is embarking on this. The Chinese government announced in 2021 that they spent billions on cloud seeding to mitigate the weather. So, and then you've got what was in your book that I read, Project Cloverleaf seeding the atmosphere in the US and Canada. So, if this is very real, and the skepticism of those who still believe that this isn't actually occurring, it's mind-boggling. It's more, why is it occurring? And that's what you were alluding to there. Why is it taking place? So, if you just continue, please.
Well, yeah, no, let's stop. Let's do that regarding why is it taking place. Well, there was a fellow who came out with a statement, a very important fellow. This was before it became top secret, and you can't get anything out of anyone. Is that Simon Norton? Mark Anderson. He was an aerospace and defense expert working for Booz Allen Hamilton in Chicago. Booz Allen Hamilton is a really big military contractor. Weapons production, weapons of mass destruction, DEWs, directed energy weapons, you name it, they make it. And Matt Anderson said in 2006, I believe this is from, let me read it, it's very short. But this is what geoengineering really is. Okay, let's listen very closely, because it's not just about cloud seeding. It's far, far, far from just being about cloud seeding. Matt Anderson says, few in the civil sector fully understand that geoengineering is primarily a military science and has nothing to do with either cooling the planet or lowering carbon emissions. While seemingly fantastical, weather has been weaponized. At least 4 countries, the US, Russia, China, and Israel, possess the technology and organization to regularly alter weather and geologic events for various military and black operations, which are tied to secondary objectives, including demographic, energy, and agricultural resources management. Indeed, warfare now includes the technological ability to induce, enhance, or direct cyclonic events, earthquakes, drought, and flooding, including the use of polymerized aerosol viral agents and radioactive particulates carried through global weather systems. Various themes in public debate, including global warming, have unfortunately been subsumed into much larger military and commercial objectives that have nothing to do with broad public environmental concerns. These include the gradual warming of polar regions to facilitate naval navigation and resource extraction. Okay, so that's from one of the insiders who decided to speak out when he was no longer serving in that position. So let's be really clear. I've written 5 books now on geoengineering. Did I know years ago? I mean, I've been a writer for a long time, but did I know I would be writing this many books about this? I mean, what happened for me was each book from 2014, the first one, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, would give birth to a whole bunch of things that I would suddenly discover by having studied for that book. And I would then be writing another book, the second one being Under an Ionized Sky, from Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. And then that one would suddenly reveal something else. And meanwhile, I'm looking around like, where are the other books that other smart people like me are writing? Well, there was
you'd allude to your colleague friend Clifford Cornicum, and I remember a quote from your book quoting Clifford, saying aerosol operations represent a mitigating influence on the global warming problem is a complete facade. And
Yes.
there are so many people who argue this as an effective measure to mitigate climate change, but it doesn't make sense when you consider how climate change and global warming has just gotten worse through the last few decades during these
Right.
mitigation efforts.
Right. It isn't just happening because of our cars and things. That's the story from 2015 when they had that big conference in New York and got all the nations of the world to sign on the dotted line that they would pay for carbon credits. They blamed carbon. Carbon is not the culprit here. The culprit is the military and the military's use of this technology. And the name of it is exemplified very well by the biggest one, which is HAARP. That's a wonderful acronym, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. And what HAARP is an ionospheric heater. There are other...
Sorry, before you get on to the description of what HAARP is, I wanted to actually play a quick clip related to HAARP. It's only 10-15 seconds long. So just let me play this clip first. It's it's a ionospheric heating system in the UK.
HAARP facility in Carpaldewey, Aberystwyth, Wales. There's not really much to say, is there? Just I'll try and give you a good view of it. It's much larger than what's expected, when you see the picture of it on the satellite maps or something.
So, as you were saying about HAARP, what is HAARP, and is HAARP still operational? And there is more than one ionic array. That's one in the UK, for example. So, yeah, continue about HAARP.
Yep. Yes, the disinformation came out in about 2013 when they succeeded in what they had really wanted from HAARP. HAARP is an ionospheric heater, but it's a unique one. It's not like the others, not like the one in Wales. It has much more power, much more capacity for power because the types of antennas are geared to make rays, to make beams of massive energy.
Yeah.
So it's a weapon. It's a weapon system. But it has many, many attributes for military use. And the one in Gakona, Alaska, which is the one that I primarily wrote about, it was able to take control of, and this is hard to believe, I realize it all sounds like science fiction to some people, but it was able to take control of the ionosphere, which is a bubble around the Earth. It's the very first bubble. After you leave our atmosphere, you will be in the ionosphere. And then above the ionosphere, eventually will be the magnetosphere. And that's very big. And that protects us from solar radiation. But the ionosphere is filled with ions and electrons. And the DARPA, are you familiar with that acronym? Yes, DARPA is the research arm of the military and the CIA, both together. And DARPA was able to create this wonderful ionospheric heater called HAARP that has significant weapon capacity beyond. In fact, I would go so far now, 5 books in, I've been studying this stuff a long time. I would say that it makes the atomic bomb look like child's play. This is a tremendous weapon system because it has so many different versatile abilities. And
Can you give me an example where you think HAARP's military applications have been used?
oh, they're used every day. Okay, so I'm trying to think in Scotland, what would you have seen? We have many weather events here that are extreme weather, they're called. Floods, geoengineered fires. We have fires that completely wipe out an entire landscape of thousands of acres. We have floods, we have droughts, we have volcanic eruptions coming out of nowhere. All of these are HAARP generated. They're all due to the ionospheric heater and the ionosphere that is now controlled. So it's using a type of energy called scalar energy. That is not the same thing as electromagnetic energy. It is a type of energy that can go through matter, and it actually is natural. It's a natural energy that can be induced to become electromagnetic, and they have been able to use this scalar energy for destruction. So if I could read my little list here to give you an idea of what it's doing on the various levels, and then we can go from there. Is that okay?
Okay.
First, it's weather engineering. We've been talking about that. And now in the United States, I don't think in Europe it's the same, or in England, in the UK. I think we have about 35, maybe more now, 35 states of the United States who are now suing their legislature or trying to get passed bills that will protect them from the government, from chemtrails. Okay, it's very chemtrail targeting, as if chemtrails was the main problem. Remember, this has been top secret now since the 90s, since this whole program was initiated with the ionospheric heaters, the chemtrails, the whole thing. It's the thing I write about. And now that people are awake to the fact that chemtrails are giving us respiratory problems, they're making people sick, people have headaches, people have all sorts of symptoms. They want their government, their state government, to protect them from the chemtrails. So you have airspace above every piece of land down here has a certain airspace. And they want that airspace, like in the state of Idaho. Right now, Idaho is really fighting very hard to seek protection and to withdraw all geoengineering from over its state. And you realize there's 50 states here, 48 on landmass, and this idea that if you can just protect the people, that will be enough. They have no idea what this program really is because it's been top secret national security for the whole time that it's existed. And so I knew when this started, at least it's more public now, and people are talking about geoengineering as cloud seeding and weather modification. And
do you know you were saying it's more public now? I mean, HAARP is an amazing example of a weaponization of a technology.
They're
Technology.
not talking about HAARP. Nobody's talking about HAARP.
But I remember a friend around 20 years ago telling me about HAARP, and I was like, yeah, right, like how would they get away with that? But however, if you think about again the 1951 Invention Secrecy Act, where new technology we could have a multi-application, a multi-dimension, is just taken away from open source to got in the national security state, and then you've got the big pharma and the big agricultural loopholes, the testing air, that sort of thing. But I was told about HAARP 20 years ago, and I completely dismissed it as like a conspiracy thing.
That's right. And when they obtained control over the ionosphere with HAARP, they passed the rumor that HAARP was no more, that the University of Alaska at Fairbanks had taken it over for research by various people. That is not true. HAARP is still very much active, and it works with other ionospheric heaters. It doesn't just work alone. And that's very important, because for the weaponizing or the holography, it has the ability to produce holograms in the sky. Like now, I think they're planning to make it look like an alien invasion, and it's going to use holography. And the holography is being produced by all of the ionospheric heaters. Well, it'll take 3 to produce a 3D looking type of attack. So it's very useful. Okay, let me read my list. Besides weather engineering, then there's a lot of experimentation with chemistry and electromagnetics up there. And this takes plasma and antimatter experiments. Birkeland currents are being experimented on. Whistler waves, Alvin waves, rotating electrical fields, plasma. I mean, there's a lot going on up there. And when you get to see one of those, maybe you'll see a piece of plasma that looks like it could stand alone. It's a cloud, looks like a cloud, but it's very big, and it stands on the earth and bounces its way along. And you think it's probably alien, and that's probably the way. They've kept Americans very childlike, and they believe a lot of things because they don't know much science. I don't know if it's the same in the UK. I think it is. Then the third operation is planetary geophysical. And this is to take land masses, for example, create a fire or have a tornado or an earthquake or whatever, and destroy and make people move and buy their real estate, the land they own, for very cheap, and then change it into whatever the elite have in mind for taking over that particular landmass. I think the state in the United States that suffers the most from that is California. Then the fourth operation of geoengineering is the directed energy weapons. And this is this is very interesting, because there was the time when we thought of directed energy weapons as basically being scalar interferometry, lasers, masers, particle beam weapons, high-powered microwave weapons, big weapons, powerful weapons like Star Wars, zap, zap, zap. Now they can do just about anything that's electromagnetic. Even
you've got like Havana syndrome, microwave radiation technology, because these nausea, migraine, dizziness. You've got that's well known and common, and an example of what you're alluding to there, isn't it?
Yes, that is definitely one. And the microwaves are well. How many people own a microwave oven? I've never owned one. It's crazy to own one of those because it has a gravitron in it, which is a weapon. So they can come into our homes and use whatever is electromagnetic, draw energy from it for the weaponry that they're using on the human beings that they're targeting. That's the problem with the directed energy weapons now, is they're not just the big things. They're just about anything that is electromagnetic can be turned into a weapon. This is what they mean by dual use.
What was Operation Woodpecker? I know it had something to do with causing earthquakes, but I'm assuming that was directed energy weapons?
Woodpecker was when the Soviet Union was happening during the Cold War, and it was basically more Tesla. This is all Tesla stuff. And Tesla was able to produce these microwave pulses that could go a long distance. I think the fire that happened in Tunguska, up in far in the north of Russia, was very much created by Tesla, and the United States was still supporting the Soviets in the 70s when they hit our embassy in Moscow first, and then they hit Eugene, Oregon, and forced people to take in a frequency that produced a very high rate of suicide, and proved, and this was all woodpecker stuff. Now, woodpecker was the early HAARP. HAARP can do all that and much more. HAARP is very involved in mind control, and that's the next operation: surveillance and neural manipulation. So that's the fifth operation.
I think one of the most effective uses for applications of mind control is what we're doing now, using smartphones and computers. Algorithmic digital mind control, the internet.
Well, it's that, but it's also that now, because you carry those cell phones around, and because you have breathed in the nanotechnology from the chemtrails that is constantly being delivered here. Now, the nanotechnology I haven't talked about, that's the next operation, is extremely important. We have all, they're very nano, a nano is 1/1000th of a meter. So there's no way you're going to see one, even with a really good microscope. You can see them moving collectively, like thousands or millions of them moving collectively, like in the fires in California. Those directed energy weapon fires, they were microwave fires, that firemen just couldn't believe the heat coming from those fires, and water certainly would not put them out. Because
so who do you believe used the directed energy weapons that caused the fires in California?
Oh, the United States.
Why would the United States government, or is this a breakaway?
It's a real estate. It's a real estate deal. They want people out.
Right.
And
do you think this is like a breakaway division, a breakaway segment of a United States?
Yes, Catherine Austin Fitts talks about that, because now, at first, it was $21 trillion missing from the American budget, and that she thought had gone into this whole system to eradicate the population and create land masses that were cheap. And now she says it's up to $55 trillion is missing from the American budget. So yes, I think the elites are very much planning an alternate civilization for themselves, and they are getting rid of a lot of us with the jab. And the jab is very helpful, because it's the same. This is very important, so listen well. It's the same chemistry as what's coming down on us from the geoengineering is in those jabs. So do you see
a lot of it, I believe, also is done out of pure ignorance and stupidity. Like you were referencing the jab and how there wasn't, and I'm going to add this, how there wasn't a longitudinal study to reveal the outcomes of the side effects of that. There was no longitudinal study. That was a new technology. So if you were going to outroll something like that, you should have a longitudinal study first. So if you're going to provide that technology, administer that to the general population, you should know what will happen. It was like the polio vaccine and what happened when they outrolled the Jonas Salk vaccine and the number of people that, had side effects from that. And then same with the Albert Sabin one too.
So you're saying that you believe what they tell you?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you're going to administer an entire population with a new technology, you should have a longitudinal study
Well, don't
to
you think
provide
they
your
have them?
information and data. You should,
Don't
like,
you think they have them? Yes, they do. They have planned the whole thing.
right. So instead of being stupidity and ignorance, you think it has been
It's intentional.
right.
It's murder.
Mhm.
It's murder on
Because
a
I've listened to
scale you and I can hardly fathom that kind of evil.
because
No,
what
no,
about when the Jonas Salk vaccine was outrolled? I think that was in the 50s for the polio vaccine, and
no,
again
that's
that
all
was
lies. It's all lies. I
right.
assure you, I've done the research. It's all lies. Vaccines are the worst thing you can get.
I'm not here to encourage or discourage anyone to get a vaccine. I'm strictly saying that I can recall studying and researching back in the 50s, and I wasn't around back then, but when people were first getting the polio vaccine, it was a brand new technology. Jonas Salk came out with a dead virus that you could, give someone and they would get an immune response. But a number of people, a very large number of people, got sick and died from that. And that's an example of a new technology that has it didn't work. It went wrong. You, you,
Well,
you, you,
no,
right.
no. There is no virus, first of all, unless you're talking about the gain of function virus that they are now creating in labs. There is no natural virus. There has never been one isolated. There is no natural virus.
But
But there,
if we're going to use gain of function if we're going to use gain of function, does that not mean there must be an actual virus to do the gain of
no,
function to make it
no,
more virulent?
they use proteins and they use bacteria and they transform them into vectors. And the vectors, just like the tick that carries Lyme disease, the vectors transfer the gain of function entity to bodies.
Mhm.
And in that way, there is virus, but only in that way. We've got to wean ourselves from the disinformation of the first 1 to 200 years of Western medicine. We were lied to in so many ways. I'm sorry to tell you.
Because
But
from
these are,
the way it appeared to me is it was a respiratory virus that had the mechanism of a cold. It had the spike protein that was like a cold spike protein, but it infected you like a respiratory virus. So that was the evidence of gain of function. That was the
that's
evidence
the
of
gain of function. Yes, spike
yeah.
protein is gain of function creation, a creation.
Mm-hmm. So I
By
mean,
biowarfare scientists. We've got to accept that we have been secretly subjected to biowarfare science now for at least since, I would say, the 30s. So over 100 years, about 100 years.
if you're going back to the 30s, or are you making an allusion to the Third Reich, or even the United States and Britain, who were deeply involved in eugenics? Are we talking
Yeah,
about right?
it started in America. The eugenics movement started in America. So,
And again, they do pretty wild, crazy shit. I mean, I know I'm changing the subject here, but this is always spellbound to me. Didn't they nuke the Van Allen radiation belt?
no, well, they tried to. They tried to, but all they succeeded in doing was creating another Van Allen radiation belt.
Why would they do something? Why would they send nuclear weaponry into
Well,
our
because they can't get any human beings through the Van Allen radiation belt, so they wanted to burst a gateway out of the planet so that they could have their space program from the way they were thinking then.
right?
Now
Right.
they know that you can't get through the Van Allen belt in those violent ways. It won't work. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to create a transhuman now by changing our equipment, changing our circulatory system, our nervous system, and replacing those with synthetic and artificial. That's what my synthetic biology book is all about, of how they do that. It's all self-assembly, self-replication, and self-healing. And we will then be basically not human anymore. We will be for a while hybrid humans, but then what they want is they don't want any humanity in the final product. And then those beings will be able to go through the radiation belt with no problem.
Do you know that's like I recently read a Lovecraft story.
Yeah, it's like Lovecraft.
I can't remember what it's called, but that was the plot of the Lovecraft story. Where you know what, I don't want to get into it because I can't recall the name. Listen, I want to play a short clip, and I would like to get your feedback on what this member of the government.
Are we all done now? Are we done?
No, I want to get into the transhumanism thing too. I was wanting to save that to the for the end of the show as the last question because, yeah, I'm really fascinated about they make
I haven't finished my list yet here, Vincent.
Right, okay, let's go for the list.
Okay, I have only 2 more things, but they're quite interesting. Now, the last one I did was surveillance and neural manipulation, which is mind control. And probably the very best person to study the mind control that's coming from satellite. Now, you know, Elon Musk now has, I can't remember, I think it's 60,000 CubeSats up there that are now connected to all of the vaxxed people as they follow them, because they're all experimental and they're improving the transhuman program as they go, as they find out what happens with what and who, and that the fact that people now are on a leash, an electromagnetic leash, leading to a satellite, a couple 100 miles up, if indeed that's even true. I doubt everything now. I doubt everything. All the numbers.
Do you believe in shedding? Do you think that's a real thing?
Well, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. Yeah, just give me a minute. I love your enthusiasm.
As soon as you say something that's interesting, I just need to jump in, you know.
I know. Very childlike. Very childlike.
Oh, you called me childlike. Thank you.
I didn't say.
You know what? I'm going to hold my tongue and just let you go on then.
Okay. So this leash of the vaxxed. Now, I'm not vaxxed, I can happily say. But the people who are vaxxed are on an electromagnetic leash to the Elon Musk and others. Amazon's satellites are up there. It's so crowded up there, it's unbelievable. And so you now, if say you're vaxxed, you have an electromagnetic field around you 24/7, because that leash is active 24/7. And they are funneling out through the nanotechnology that you have breathed in, eaten from GMO foods. You are now, you have all of these programmed, very tiny, but completely transceivers. They're transmitting and they're receiving programming from satellite programs with algorithms, etc. Your electromagnetic field is very, very active. So I had an experience of the shedding one day. Shedding. No, it is not contagion. It is not viral. There is no virus that is, or not even the spike from your breath or your saliva or whatever. No, what's happening is you have an electromagnetic field around you now, so that if your field is affected by one of the vaxxed people, And it has to be geometric, like a triangle, like a triangulation of energy, or something like that. Perhaps a square too. I don't know about that. So I was in an an eyeglass shop, asking the proprietor, a woman, about her if she tested eyes, and her mother was there, and the mother decided at a certain point I was doing fine, and then she moved around her daughter's desk and came over to the right side of me, so that now it was a perfect equilateral triangle among the three of us, the woman and her mother and me. And immediately I felt like I was going to throw up. Immediately I felt woozy. And I knew what was happening. I knew that it was the electromagnetic field and that I had to get out of there. So I backed up toward the door. I thanked them profusely for being very nice to me and said I had to go. And as soon as I walked outside, I felt immediately better. So it's electromagnetic is what the shedding is. Does that mean it's fake? No, it's very real. But you have to know it's electromagnetic. It has nothing to do with contagion. You're in their field. They're in your field. The two fields are in conflict. And so when you're around people, if you are not vaxxed and you are around people who are vaxxed, you must be very aware that, in a way, you are two different species now. And you are operating off of a different relationship to electromagnetics. Okay, so
Elana, the next item, just for the timing of the show, because there's a couple more questions I'd like to ask after this one.
Okay, so the sixth operation is the digital biology. Everything's digital now. They're changing all of molecular biology to digital. What that means is they don't need to have substance anymore. All they need is the frequency of the substance that they can then digitize and send by computer, by cell phone, by satellite, and you will get sick. You will have symptoms. So this is very serious. Digital biology is not.
I get sick around technology a lot. I suffer from a migraine, chronic migraine, and use many different types of medication treatment. I've also done transcendental meditation, hemispherical synchronization, all this different stuff to try and get out of myself, get out of my body in a way to transcend pain. You're right in the sense that what seems to work the most is when I get away from the technology.
Yeah, right. Funny thing about that. So you have to deal with the technology. None of that. There's no transcending it. You have to deal with it. So let me finish this. Okay, the sixth operation of geoengineering is digital biology, nanotechnology, and transhumanism. And I've got all three of those together because they all work together. And then finally, and that's what my book that is coming out soon from Inner Traditions, as soon as they do the editing, that's what it's about. Finally, the seventh operation, in a way, is the most fun and the one I know the least about. This is the cloaking and obscuration or detection of exotic propulsion craft. That's UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call it, and plasma life forms. And most people don't even know those exist. I have seen them, and they are in our air. And they
you can't just bring that up. That's like a whole other show. You could do a whole show on plasma life forms. You can't bring it up and then I need to move on 30 seconds later to something else.
Yes, but I'm not the expert on plasma. I think if you want the expert on plasma, you need to talk to, wait a minute, I got to remember his name, Joseph Patrick Farrell, F-A-R-R-E-L.
I love Joseph
He's
Farrell.
a
I've got
good
lots of his
friend.
books. Yeah.
He's a good friend of Catherine Austin Fitts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Joseph
Yeah.
publishes a few books on plasma. He and I are obsessed with plasma. Okay, but he knows a lot more than I do. That's it. Those are the 7 operations. Now, see that it's far beyond weather. Far beyond weather. All those operations are going on through the geoengineering. And I highly recommend to your listeners, if you run, if you do a lot of exercise and you like to do it early in the morning, don't run outside, because they have been laying chemtrails all night, and you will breathe in a huge amount of chemicals. If you start exercising your lungs too much, you'll just suck it in, and you do not want that.
So, Elana, I'm going to play this clip from a member of the US government. You'll probably be familiar with him because, you know, you're American.
Concerned Americans have urgent and important questions about geoengineering and contrails. The American public deserves and expects honesty and transparency from their government when seeking answers. But for years, people who asked questions in good faith were dismissed, even vilified by the media and their own government. That era is over. The Trump EPA...
Is that era over? Is that era over? What do you think?
Vilified. I'm still being vilified.
Do you think, is that era over? Do you have any confidence in disclosure of the full extent of geoengineering?
None. It's top secret. It's top secret. That's
so is this is just PR on the part of Lee Zeldin?
Well, this fellow may not know. He may not know. I mean, that's the advantage of having a cover story like global warming or climate change. You've got a cover story ready-made, and people will have to deal with that, and that will take years for them to finally pop that one open and realize, no, it's not like this, because the military is involved, deeply involved in this. So, you have to dig deeper, and most people don't dig. They're too busy paying their mortgage, going to work, raising their children. There's a lot to do in life.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, our environment is so polluted and toxic. And where I'm from, right, Elana, there's a river, and the river used to be it's like 5 minutes from my house walking distance, and there used to be a salmon river teeming with life until in the mid 19th century, a local baron called Overton, his real name was James White, and he essentially killed the river, all life in it, with an industrial byproduct called chromium-4 that came from a factory that he had built up at the same time, and he extracted these chrome crystals, and he built a castle, and it's a well-known place over here, and it's got so much going on. It's actually got a lot of paranormal lore. But anyway, hundreds of workers died or had their life shortened due to that poison. And again, to this day, all life in that river is dead. He was either mad or bad, and so our environment is so damaged. And I've got a friend, and she, again, this is another friend, and she was highlighting this, referencing these things before I knew anything about it. Like my other one 20 years ago who told me about HAARP, she was talking about Magellan's and about how she believed she was poisoned by Morgellons. It made her sick. What are Morgellons?
Morgellons was the first synthetic biology creature that they delivered to us to see how it went. And we breathed it in, and many people, not everyone, many people got sick from the Morgellons. I interviewed, several people with Morgellons, serious Morgellons, a few of whom died eventually. One was particularly horrendous. It had taken over her whole scalp, and her scalp now was filled with these terrible creatures. and nanotechnology, and she heard voices. I mean, it was just awful. And that was my first. I didn't have the term synthetic biology then. I only knew that Clifford studied Morgellons very deeply, and I helped collect blood samples from people. And when you put the slide under the microscope, you could see that this creature in the Morgellons, and Morgellons presents itself as, they're very tiny, but you can see them with a microscope, filaments. And if you can break open the filaments, either chemically or methodically, you'll find several organs inside. And those are what is most horrendous about the Morgellons, is they will then, I watched a Morgellons creature come up to my red blood cell and suck out the iron from it. And so that my red blood cell pancaked.
And you got a lot of people with iron deficiency, more than ever now.
Yeah, yeah. So that Morgellons was the very first thing we saw as being purposely delivered to see the impact. I mean, it was the same time they were developing Lyme disease back east. And all of these things are military. They're all military. It's all weaponizing. That's all these people think about. And now Morgellons is still happening, but it's been joined by all sorts of other synthetic biology creatures.
So I guess this is connected to that question there. How do we purify ourselves and protect ourselves from all of these harmful things in the atmosphere and the environment?
The first thing is, as you know, a lot of people are now realizing they have a lot of heavy metals in their system. And so you would take a piece of your hair and send it into one of these places that will analyze, a lab that will analyze your hair to find out what metals you have and how much of the metals you have. It's a bit expensive, but not impossible. It's hundreds of dollars, not thousands. And you have to just make sure that the lab you're sending it to is honest. And to find that out, you have to know some chemists or biologists who have used that lab and will vouch for it. And then that's one thing. So you've got the heavy metals. Now for the fibers, you definitely have them in your body. There's no question about it. As to whether they have broken out of their filament and are now at work in your tissues, that I think has to do with how acidic or alkaline your blood is. And so I studied Chinese medicine for several years when I was in my 20s. I thought I was going to be a Chinese medical doctor because I was done with the Western medicine system. I haven't been to a Western doctor since I was 13 because I saw what money grubbing, dishonest people they can be. And I've never felt that I can tell the difference in a timely manner. So I don't go to doctors. I've been to doctors since I was 13. I studied Chinese medicine.
An NHS doctor over in the UK, it's free to the point of care.
Well, yeah, but it's not the free. I lived in England and I saw what that national health system was doing to the British. It's not good. It's not good at all. They don't know anything.
You're right. The waiting times over, like you go to an A&E now in the UK, you're waiting 10, 12 hours to get seen. And I'm in Scotland. The only thing that I can sing praise of in regards to the NHS in Scotland is that we don't pay for medications. So it's a public.
But all of that has to be, in my opinion, you have to throw all of that out. It can't be trusted. It has nothing to do with health. Nothing. You have to take your health up by yourself. You can't expect an organization to give you health or to help you take care of your health. You can't expect that. It's an organization. Its main agenda is to survive and make profit.
That is true. You are ultimately responsible for your own health. However,
Yes,
when I was a child, I'm not really responsible for myself. When I was 8 or 9, I'm a kid, and when I come down with a condition like epilepsy, and I start seizuring really bad, and then the NHS provide me with a medication, stops my seizures. What am I supposed to do? Stop using the medication?
yeah, there's other ways to go at that. I don't know what the cost of that medication was. One is usually your kidneys. They're the first thing to go. But anyway, let's not get into it. I don't want to personalize this. I'm giving you general.
I remember, but I also remember you talking about, because I saw you on another podcast. You were talking about how you can go in a bath and use Epsom salts and other stuff to remove.
Yeah,
What was
yeah,
that? Because I found that fascinating, but that was over a year ago. I listened to that, and I
yeah.
can't
I'm
recall
still
it.
doing those. I still do the baths when I need it, particularly in the winter.
Describe
And
what it is you're putting in the bath to.
Epsom salts, it's up to you how much you put in, a half cup or a cup. Epsom salts, I put in sea salt, baking soda, and what else is there? Borax. We have it here in the States called borax. It's boron. And those 4 ingredients into the bath, and that's bath water that's probably chlorinated from being, cleaned in order to be recycled, etc. But mainly it helps you get through, like we all have biofilm on us. You don't notice it anymore, but it clogs up your pores, and the boron will help you open up those pores again so that you can get some stuff out of you. And so I do that, and mainly it's the eating of food. And GMOs are the worst thing you can possibly eat, because they have raised all GMOs to produce a transhuman species. It has nothing to do with being Homo sapiens. And the fact that in the States, I don't know how it is in UK, but in the States, we've had Monsanto and GMO fields since the 1930s. So almost 100 years now, people in America have been eating GMOs, which are grown from what's called terminator seed, which is not even alive. It's not alive. You're eating fake food. In fact, I spell that PHOOD because of Big Pharma. It's not really food. And so if I eat at a restaurant, I know I'm eating GMOs. And so I'll try to eat very much like a saint for the next 2 days.
So do you grow your own food, or do you buy it locally
I
sourced?
buy organic, and we have a farmer's market here. And I used to grow food, but I don't do it anymore. I live in an apartment now.
Yeah, I mean, the area I'm from is it's quite. I mean, you've got a marina here, and you've got a lake, like Loch Lomond, and it's a beautiful area, man. Real lovely area. However, I've noticed, the food still, the environment, the technology, it's omnipresent. Even when you're out in the sticks and you think you're getting away from the city, it's pervasive. It's everywhere. They're blanketing you with this 5G
Coming
from
from space. It's coming from space. I mean, we can't escape it.
Mhm.
We can't. We have to deal with it. And Rudolf Steiner, and I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner. Did you know that? I don't know if you knew that.
I don't know. I'm not. I don't even know who Rudolf Steiner is. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, he's considered a mystic, but he was primarily a physicist who is also a mystic. He's kind of like Newton. Newton was the same. Anyway, I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner, and he talks about how we'll have to face the machine and our relationship with the machine for the rest of our human existence. It's just the way it is. The machine.
Yeah, it is frightening, and they have been so many signs throughout my life and your life. We've seen it in film, we've seen it in music, we've seen it in the media, warning us against the dependency and addiction to technology, and yet we insist. We can't stop ourselves, and
That's
it's indefectible. And we know for instinct. We can feel it in our gut where it's going.
yeah.
And yeah, but I can only hope there is this balance between technology and nature, and we find some way through it. Because I personally feel it too. It's affecting me, and I'm sure there are many who are going to listen to this who will be nodding their heads with a lot what we've said, and whether it's Morgellons or HAARP, and they know about it. Okay, Elana, before
from large systems, though. It's coming from large systems, so don't beat yourself up too badly. The mind control is everywhere now.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And most of the people I know in my town who are not conscious like I am and who don't make big efforts to limit electromagnetics and eat well and take care of my body, most of those people haven't a clue what they're facing. Not a clue. So let's be honest. Don't beat yourself up too badly. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, before we wrap this up, is there anything you would like to I know you recently you wrote that on your book, and anything you'd like to promote or tell the audience about before we...
About the books. I want to talk about where to get the books. Okay, so the first two books, the second one was Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. Space Fence Lockdown is what President Trump is now talking about with Silicon Valley, and he's renamed it Stargate AI. That's what it is. We are all plugged in to Stargate AI, Space Fence Lockdown. And that means our nervous system is plugged in. It's indisputable. So anyway, you can find out about that in the second book. And then the third book is Geoengineered Transhumanism, which is sort of the kitchen sink book. It's very thick, 650 pages with color photos. And that's Geoengineered Transhumanism. Then I got a new publisher after that, and now I have the Geoengineered Transhuman. That's this book, and put out by Inner Traditions. And I also signed a contract to write the companion book to that, which I just finished. And the name of that book is Remaining Human, Standing Up to the Transhuman Nanomachine Takeover of Homo sapiens. And that is in the editing process right now and won't be out until later this year. So you can get these at Amazon, at least in America you can. And you can also go to a bookstore. I would believe for the last two books, you could go to a bookstore in Scotland or London or anywhere in Europe and ask them to order it, and they will get it.
Yeah, I was online, and the last book you showed there, Transhumanism, I saw that, and I was thinking of buying it. You should send me a signed version of that, Elana, in the mail. An autographed version. One day I can go, this is what Elana Freeland sent me.
It costs a lot of money to send to England. Not as much as Australia, though.
That's right. You've got the tariffs now, right? Okay, and I read your first book, and it was very informative, insightful, and I learned a lot from it. So again, thank you for writing that book, and thank you for coming on. It was an enjoyable conversation. Yeah,
we had a little technical difficulty, but we got it handled.
Yeah, again, it's Virgin Media. That's those technology companies. Blame them. They're not only destroying our bodies, they're ruining our programming. But Elana, thank you for coming on, and I enjoyed.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vincent.
Goodbye. And that was Elana Freeland, and I recommend you check her books out. I've read some of them myself, as I said. Now, I've had some emails about a guest called Frater Eleftheria, and I was supposed to have him on the show last week. However, there were some technical issues, and I alluded to them just there. So they prevented a proper episode being made and uploaded. And I hope to get him back on because we had a excellent conversation. I just couldn't record it and get it uploaded because there were so many disruptions to the recording. But hopefully he will come back on. And again, it's just because I've received about a dozen messages in the last couple of days asking about that episode. And again, if you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. And if you really enjoyed, you can donate at Caledonian Elixir / buy me a coffee. There's a link in the description and on my YouTube channel. And just remember, people, there's a lot of people out there trying to spread chaos. And we live in a chaotic world. So don't you be one of them. And everybody be cool. You be cool. And good night.
Gold pressed platinum, slip strips and bars. If you ever find some, you can lose it in quartz. Get a Ractogeno, spin the double wheel. Order a black hole, just depends how you feel. Yeah, it just depends how you feel. Gold pressed platinum, you know it's a gas. Mom vomits it up into a tiny little glass. Liquid platinum, more you amass.